Hey class, how are you doing? Long time no see, or long time no video lecture. Sorry about that. I had a little issue with my daughter's health in Austin, but she's just fine now. And we're getting back on track. And then, of course, like we're not distracted right now trying to wait for these election results. But what this lecture is going to entail is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your personal narrative. And hopefully you've started thinking about it. Some of you have probably already done it, but this is the next speech assignment. It is due this coming Tuesday, which would be, let's see, what did I say? Today's the 5th and it's Thursday, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that the 10th? I should have looked at it first, or the 9th. Anyway, it's this coming Tuesday. So, and remember, it's going to be just like your speech of introduction. You're going to have the written part that you submit, and I've created 2 tabs for you. So there's a tab for the written part for you to submit, just like you did last time on Blackboard. And then there's a tab for the oral part that you submit the speech, just like you did before. You record it, you upload it to YouTube, and then you put it on Blackboard, or you send me the link, whatever's easiest for you. But in any case, so that'll be the written grade and the oral grade. And we'll talk about this. I am going to make some changes, by the way, to the syllabus and the assignments. And I did this last semester, and I think it really worked out well because of the pandemic and kind of the crazy times we're in. Everyone I've talked to right now is anxious. And of course, on Instagram, I've been seeing the memes. We're the United States of anxiety right now. Of course, El Paso is a COVID capital. So, there's all these things going on. And I'm just hoping, no matter what the outcome of this election, that, our country can find some healing and some ways to listen to each side. Since we're so split, we need to listen to each side. We need to mind what the other is saying. Even if we violently disagree with it, we need to try to understand where the other side is coming from. I don't know. I hope we can reunite, and I'm hoping our country can heal. I don't know about you. It's been causing me some anxiety, and also with COVID, but we've gone through difficult times before, and we have to keep marching ahead and marching forward and doing the best that we can to take care of ourselves and take care of our families and to take care of our goals in life as best we can. But class, be gentle with yourselves. I have not been able to work at the level that I normally can. It's just not happening. And I don't know if you read that article. I sent you the link to that article. My daughter's instructor at UT Austin had sent it to her about this is an ongoing experience going through COVID. And so your surge capacity gets down. Your ability to kind of surge in the middle of a crisis when your flight or fight system kicks in. But when you have to go through a prolonged period of stress or anxiety, that gets depleted. So be gentle with yourselves. Try to find things that make you happy, that relieve that, whatever it is. If it's taking a walk, if it's looking at birds, if it's sitting with your cat or your dog in your lap, or whatever pet you have, take that time out. If you can practice some meditation, there's a lot of meditation apps on your phones like Headspace, and I can't remember the names of some of the other ones, but that's one that comes to my mind. Just taking 5 minutes to focus on your breathing. And we're going to talk more about this when I do talk a little bit more about stage fright, because the whole thing with stage fright, when you get in front of an audience and you're so nervous and have that sense of being so scared, that's actually your flight or fight system kicking in, the same one that Kelly McGonigal talked about in How to Make Stress Your Friend. So all of this is happening right now. Be gentle with yourselves. Do something that makes you happy. Watch a funny movie. Laugh. Call someone up for support, because these are very anxiety-ridden times. And if you're not experiencing that, more power to you. Keep moving ahead. So I am going to change that syllabus. Like I started to say, this worked well last semester. Instead of doing, we're going to do the narrative speech, but instead of doing two more speeches, the informative and the persuasive is normally your final exam speech. I'm still going through the material. I'm still going to teach you the difference between an informative and persuasive speech, but you are going to get a choice of which one you want to do for the final exam speech, okay? So just to kind of give you a heads up on that. Now, today, we're going to talk about your narrative and how you do your narrative speech. And after we do the narrative speech, I am then going to be going through a step-by-step process. Actually, I'm probably going to go through that today. The step-by-step process for how to deliver a speech. What are the steps? But at least part of the steps, because this speech that you're going to do for Tuesday is not researched. So there's going to be some steps that are different. But in any case, we'll take a look. And this speech is going to be what we call extemporaneous delivery. And that's where you know the speech, you've learned it, you've practiced it. But like I'm doing now, I'm not reading what I'm telling to you off of paper. Okay, I know the material. I also have my outline, which is your assignment to follow. So that's what you're going to do. You can have your outline of your speech on note cards, and then you talk to us. So extemporaneous delivery is delivery from an outline. So hang in there, class. But that's what I would say. Do your best to get your work done and all of that. But realize this is not a normal time. Okay. So here we go. The assignment. So this is what I call the personal narrative speech. A narrative is telling a story. Okay, so you're going to tell a story, but you're not just going to tell a story for the heck of it. You're going to tell us the story of either your most embarrassing moment or your most memorable moment and what you learned from it. That's the most important part. You're telling the audience a story with a purpose. So, what's the purpose of this speech? You're informing the audience about either an embarrassing moment or a memorable moment by telling the story behind it. You're also trying to provide us with some moral or insight into life that's going to benefit us, okay, that's going to help us in some way. Either, I don't know, give us a more positive way of looking at things, maybe telling us not to take ourselves seriously. Whatever it is, it needs to be a positive message. And then, of course, in any story, even if the story is sad, or tragic, there's an element of entertainment. Okay, there's an element of entertainment. So let's talk just a little bit more about that, because I didn't do the ethical public speaking chapter yet. But this comes into play right here. What is an ethical public speaker? Okay. And the word in Aristotle said to persuade an audience, you had to have logos, pathos, and ethos. The Greeks said logos, okay, logos. Americans say logos. It means logic, logical appeal, facts, statistics. Your arguments make sense. Then pathos is emotion. Think about where we get our term pathetic, if something's pathetic. Our term pathology for disease, when you're sick, comes from the word pathos, because pathos is something that's full of emotion. So that's emotional appeal. And then ethos finally is ethical appeal. And ethos is actually the Greek word for character. It means, what sort of character are you, the speaker? What do you stand for? Okay, you've got to stand for something or you're going to fall for anything. So an ethical public speaker is typically someone who's trustworthy, who's fair, who doesn't tell lies, who doesn't pull facts and statistics out of context, who does not feed people misinformation, knowing that it's misinformation. So it's someone that we feel like we can trust, okay, and who also, so that's the speaker's character. Do you reflect a positive ethos? Do you seem to stand for positive values? Do you stand for the sanctity of human life? Do you stand for freedom and liberty? What do you stand for? What do you base your arguments on? So it's not only who you are as a speaker, what you stand for. Do you seem like an ethical person to your audience and a trustworthy person to your audience, but also whether or not your argument, what you're asking us to do, is ethical. So that's sort of a key point. So think about that as you're doing your story or choosing your story. What is the lesson? And is it, it doesn't have to be that deep. It can be a funny story, and then the lesson is kind of something positive, or, don't take yourself so seriously, or when you look back on this 10 years from now, it's not going to look so bad, or whatever it is. But it's a healthy message. It's something that's going to benefit your audience. You don't want to ask your audience to do something or believe something that's unethical. Okay. So that's the difference, is are you giving us a positive message? And I'll talk more about that later when we look at chapter 3. So what skills are going to be evaluated? I use this speech to teach you the structure of an introduction and conclusion, because the good news is the structure of a speech is just like an English essay. You've got your introduction, your body, and your conclusion, like you've been taught probably since elementary school. But for speech, so keep in mind though, because here's where your English papers versus speeches start to separate. When you're writing an English paper for your English professor, you are writing for a reading audience. The audience is reading your essay, and if they miss something, they can go back. Okay. And it's written for someone who's reading it. Keep in mind, a speech is written for a listening audience. Okay. We can't go back and reread if we miss something. So there's certain rhetorical things you do to help the audience retain information and pay attention. And so the introduction and the conclusions become very important. And there is a certain structure that in typical speeches that introductions and conclusions follow. And so if you haven't already, you need to read the chapters on this, which is chapter 14, chapter 14, Developing the Introduction and Conclusion. And that's in your book. Remember, the 6th edition, A Pocket Guide to Public Speaking. So what this speech tests is your introduction and conclusion. That's one of the primary skills that I'm going to evaluate you on. The next thing that's different is this is going to be delivered, as I said before, extemporaneously, or speaking from an outline only, where you are talking to us. You don't get to have the whole paper up there this time where you just read it. Okay, you can have note cards and glance down at your note cards, but you want to talk to us. You want to aim for natural delivery. You know your speech, you know your story, you know your material. Please tell it to us. We want to learn something from you and from your experience. So those are the skills. So what do? You choose one. As we said, either my most embarrassing moment or my most memorable moment. You prepare a 3 to 5 minute speech. It really should be around 5 minutes. I mean, it can be a little longer, but don't go into 10 minutes, right? That's part of the challenge. A lot of times of giving a speech is you're on a time limit. I don't know if any of you watched the presidential debates, but part of the skill in a debate is being able to get your points across in 2 minutes, or refute your points in that time frame given. So, but here, aim for around 5 minutes. Okay, so a 5-minute speech. Then what do you want to do in the speech? You want to describe the details of that day or moment. And here's where your creativity can come in. You want to help us relive that moment, that memorable or that embarrassing moment. And think of your 5 senses. What did you see that day? What did you hear? What was the air like? What was the weather like? What did you feel like? Okay, really give us some good sensory details and descriptions about what everything was like. So you want to describe your moment, and remember, a story should have, because be careful with this, any good story has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. So think of the beginning, you get to the middle part, and then you know how you're going to end that story. That's the first part under the body of your speech. Then you're going to tell us, what's the lesson? What did you learn from that experience? Okay, that you can pass on to the audience. You want to answer in your story the journalist's questions. So these are typically questions that a journalist has to answer when they're writing a story. And that is how. So how did it happen? When did this moment happen to you? Where was it? Who was involved? And what happened? Describe it for us, okay? And so there you go. Now, here's the thing. If you want to, if you're a creative person, you can invent the story if you want to, or you can remember it. You can recall it. It can actually happen. But you have to, even if you do invent it, you've got to write it so that it's believable. Okay. And the reason I do this is there's something in communication studies called disclosure. How much information about yourself are you willing to disclose? Some people have a relatively high level of disclosure, and they don't mind. They don't mind telling you in real life how they embarrassed themselves in front of the whole school. They don't mind sharing with you a really tragic moment when someone close to them passed away. But some people do. Other people have low levels of what we call disclosure. They're very reserved. They're private. They don't want a lot of people to know these things about their lives. So to respect your privacy, you can invent the story or take some poetic license. Of course, again, I'm still going to be the only one probably viewing this speech. So just to let you know, but still, you're posting it on YouTube. That you should post it unlisted. Don't put private, because I won't be able to view it either. But if you unlist it, don't put public, because then everybody will be able to see it, unless you want them to. But unlisted, then I can access it once you send me the link. And I thought most of you did very well too on those speeches of introduction. It's terrible that I'm still in the process of grading those long lost TED Talks, but you all are doing very well on those too. So, so that's the structure, the basic assignment. And then what you're going to do is you're going to frame your story and lesson with an introduction and a conclusion. Okay. So what do you do for the written? Let me see if, yeah. So you're for this speech, so for the written portion, and it's kind of a weird format, okay, but this is how I want it because it's testing the intro and conclusion. You're going to type out for your introductory paragraph, you're going to type out the entire introductory paragraph. I want to make sure you have the attention getter, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. I want to make sure you have enough link material that tells us what does your attention getter have to do with your topic. I want to make sure you've got your thesis statement, and I want to make sure you have a preview. Those are the basic parts of the introduction. If you want a quick and dirty way to remember it, the three main parts are your attention getter, thesis, and preview. Then the body of your speech, I just want you to outline it. Roman numeral 2, A, story. Number 1, woke up that day, thought it was going to be a good day. 2, mom called me on the phone, very upset. 3, you can just sort of list the main events of the story to help you remember them. Then B is going to be the lesson, and then whatever the 1, 2, 3, or 4 points that you want to make about the lesson. Someone asked me a very good question, because on the sample, I did give you a sample format, Okay, because you do have that on your assignment under assignments. I did give you a sample format, but they had a very good question. They said, well, on Roman numeral 2, under story, you have 5 points, and under the lesson, you have 2. Do you want us to do those exactly? The answer to that's no. You may have more or less points under story and lesson. It depends on your story and your lesson. So, but I do want it in this outline format. But no, you don't have to have exactly 5 points under the story and 2 under the lesson. But you do have to have A, story, and then letter B, the lesson. And I do want it to look like this in this format. Your title, your Roman numeral 1, the introduction and paragraph form, Roman numeral 2 body, A, the story, then the numbers of the main points of the story, letter B, lesson, the main points of the lesson, and then Roman numeral 3 is your conclusion, and I do want that conclusion typed out in paragraph form, line by line, because again, I'm testing you over the intro and conclusion. What are at least the 3 things the conclusion have? Your summary statement, which restates essentially your preview. What did you just tell us? B, your restatement of purpose, which is basically refers back to your thesis. Here's why I told you the story, audience. Here's the main thing I want you to take away from my speech today. And then the C point is your final impression statement. You end as you began. You end as you began. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. So that's what you do for the written. And then and again, I don't want you to turn in the entire speech for that. You can write it out for your own preparation, but I don't want it like that. I want it like this. Okay. Then for your oral presentation, you can only use note cards and put an outline on there. I would not put your entire speech, because then if you get nervous, you're going to start reading it off your note card, and if you read it, it's manuscript delivery. So practice this sucker until you can give us the speech talking to us, kind of like I'm doing here with you. And talk to us, don't read to us. Remember to have your vocal variety, to be articulate, lots of animation, you're alive, and you want to pick an event, a story that you care about, right? That you want to share, that's important to you. Because if it's not important to you, why should I care about it? Okay, or why should the audience care about it? And think about your audience. Even though you're going to upload this and I'm going to watch it, I still want you to write this speech as if you were going to give it to your classmates. I'm just one other person in the audience. Okay, so that's the assignment. Now let's talk about the structure of an introduction and conclusion. Okay, so I want to ask you the question, what other classes do you typically have to give speeches in? And if we were live, you would probably say, I don't know, education class, English class sometimes, biology. I get various classes history that people have to make presentations in. And so typically that's what you have to do. Okay, so think about this. The dreaded let's just take history, because I think most people can relate to this. So the dreaded history day comes around, okay, and it goes something like this. The professor calls the first person up, and it goes something like this. Hi, my name is so-and-so, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Civil War. Blah, 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 la da 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 da, blah, 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 blah. That's it. Okay. Then the professor calls the second person up, and it goes something like this. Hi, my name is so-and-so, and today I'm going to talk to you about World War II. Blah, 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 la, 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 yada, 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 yada. Thank you. Okay. The third person comes up, and it goes something like this. Hello, class. My name is so-and-so, and I'm going to talk to you about the civil rights movement. La 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 la, yada 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 yada, blah 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 blah. That's it. Okay. And it goes on like this, does it not, class, for another 20 some odd presentations? They all start the same way and they all end the same way. One word for this class, one word. Boring! You do not want to start your speech with, hi, my name is, today I'm going to talk about, because everybody's going to do that. Plus, the today I'm going to talk about statement doesn't come at the beginning of your introduction or speech. It actually comes at the end, because guess what? The today I'm going to talk about statement is your thesis, right? So instead, you want to get your audience's attention, and I want you to think, because many of you noted this and it was very good. Go back to those speeches, how to make stress your friend and how body language may shape you. How did Kelly McGonigal and Amy Cuddy get your attention? Did they come out? Did both of them come out on the stage and say, hi, my name is Amy Cuddy, and today I'm going to talk to you about how the body language is going to shape who you are? Or Kelly McGonigal, hi, my name is Kelly McGonigal, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to make stress your friend. No, they did not do that. Go back. Kelly McGonigal starts her speech with, I have a confession to make. That's a startling statement. That gets our attention. What does she mean? What's she going to confess to us? Well, she's the main, we barely know her. You know, and then she, of course, leads into the fact that she's been teaching how stress is the enemy when really she's rethought this whole thing. How did Amy Cuddy get the audience's attention? She gives us a little life hack, and then she calls the audience's attention to how they're sitting. See, that's much better. That gets our attention. So the very first line of your speech should be an attention getter. Now, your chapter mentions some ways for getting the audience's attention. One of the ways you can get the audience's attention is to start with a question. Okay. It can either be a question that actually has an answer, or it can be what we call a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question, you don't really expect anyone to answer. It's designed to get the audience's attention, to get them thinking. So if I was going to give you a persuasive speech on why we should fight to lower our taxes, for example. So instead of coming out and going, hi, my name is Lisa McNeil, and today I'm going to talk to you about why we need to lower our taxes. It's like, woo, whoopee. Instead, you come out, how many of you in here like to pay high tax? I love that. Okay, cut, rewind. How many of you in here like to pay high taxes? Anybody? Okay, so you see that? You can start with a question. Or another example, say you were going to give us an informative speech on how to build your vocabulary. Okay, so can you imagine if I come out and go, hi, my name is Lisa McNeil, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to build your vocabulary. You all are going to be going like, oh goody, whoopee, can't wait for this speech. As opposed to, I walk out. How many of you in here know the meaning of the word verisimilitude? Anyone? How about the meaning of the word verity? No? Well, I wouldn't be telling you the truth if I told you that I knew the meaning of these words right off the bat, too. But guess what? These two words both have something to do with the word truth. Okay. So see, now that's more interesting. You get the audience's attention, and then I would go into the rest of my introduction that that then tells you why it's important to improve your vocabulary, that we're going to talk about how to improve your vocabulary and give you 3 ways to improve your vocabulary. Okay, but I'm just giving you techniques right now for the attention getter. So you can start with a question. You could start with a startling statistic, for example, to get our attention that has to do with your topic. You could start with a quote that has to do with your topic. You could start with a little short anecdote. I wouldn't do that, which is little story that sets up your speech. Now, I would not do that because that's the whole for this speech, that is, because that's the whole speech you're doing right now is a narrative. But for your informative or persuasive, one technique is to start your speech with a story, go into all the facts, statistics, arguments, and then your conclusion tells us the end of that story. Okay? So you can do that. There's all kinds of ways to get the attention. You can refer to people in the audience. You could refer to something in the room. You could refer to a public event that's taking advantage of what we call rhetorical context. So you could, right now, if you were hired to give a speech somewhere, or even giving a speech in one of your classes or presentations, you might refer to the election as an attention getter and then hook your topic to that. So the sky's the limit, or maybe you have a striking photograph you want to show us. So really the sky's the limit when it comes to getting the audience's attention, but those are some of the ways to do it. And again, these are in your chapter. Startling statements, quotations, that kind of thing. Not, hi, today I'm going to talk about. You just start with that darn attention getter. Then you need a couple of sentences that let the audience know, what does your attention getter have to do with your topic? Okay, because you want to kind of lead us along, because again, we're listening. Then you get to your thesis. So after you've given us the attention getter, kind of told us what the attention getter has to do with your topic and perhaps why your topic's important and why we should even listen to you in the first place, then you finally get to your thesis statement. That is the today I'm going to talk about statement. That tells us what you're going to discuss, what you're going to explain, what you're going to argue. And then finally, the last sentence of your introduction is what we call a preview statement. It tells us what are going to be the main points of the body of your speech. Typically, there's at least 3. You'll notice in your narrative speech, you just have 2. So let me tell you today the story of what happened to me that tragic day and what I learned from it. We're going to hear at that end, your preview statement is basically, we're going to hear the story and we're going to hear the lesson in the body. Okay, so that's the setup. Attention getter, link material, and including what we call your credibility. A lot of times you might tell us, why should we trust what you're saying? You don't have to worry so much about that in this speech. That's going to come into play for your informative and persuasive. It has to do with your ethos, as a matter of fact. But then you're going to give us the thesis and then the preview. So let me give you an example, another example. So say I was going to give a speech about the benefits of laughter. Okay. And remember too, class, you have to figure out, what type of speech you're giving. Is it informative or persuasive? Here for the narrative speech, it's more informing us. You're informing us about your story and then telling us about the lesson you learned. It's more informative. But in any case, here we go. Have you ever heard the saying, let a smile be your umbrella? How about the quote, laugh and the world will laugh with you? Well, both of these statements deal with how a positive attitude and a sense of humor can make a bad situation a little bit better for you and the people around you. However, did you know that the ability to laugh can mean a great deal more than a pleasant smile or momentary delight? As a matter of fact, laughter can be very beneficial in many ways. Consequently, I would like to discuss with you today the various areas in your lives where laughter can play a significantly positive role. And to do this, we're going to examine the benefits of laughter in three main areas of your lives. First, we're going to take a look at how laughter can help you on the job. Next, how laughter can help you with friends and family. And finally, how laughter can even benefit your health. So first, let's talk about how laughter can help you on the job. Okay. So there's the introduction. What's the attention getter? The questions and quotes. It's a combo. Have you ever heard the saying, let a smile be your umbrella? What about laugh and the world laughs with you? Okay, so we have a combo quote. Then we've got the link material that tells us what those quotes have to do with the topic, right? Then the thesis. Consequently, I would like to discuss the various areas in your lives where laughter can play a positive role. There is your, today I'm going to talk about statement, right? I would like to discuss. Your preview. Let's take a look at how laughter can help you on the job, with your friends and family, and with your health. Bing, bing, bing. So what's the outline? What's the body outline going to look like? Roman numeral 2 body. A, I'm going to talk to you about all the research about how laughter can help you on the job. B, I'm going to tell you all the research about how laughter is going to help you with your friends and family. And C, I'm going to tell you how laughter is going to help you with your health. So that preview tells the audience how your speech is organized. So what about the summary? So then you go through your speech and tell us about all that fun stuff. What about your conclusion? What do you do there? So if I can find my example, class, we'll get there. And I'm using the same laughter speech. So in a conclusion, what are the three main parts? Summary statement, you restate your purpose or thesis, and then you end as you began. You do not say, that's it, or thank you. Okay, no. So what do? So here would be the sample conclusion. So I've gone through the speech. Now that we've seen how laughter can benefit us at work, at home, and even improve our health, we should all start to smile. Numerous studies even show that laughter and a sense of humor can even increase our lifespan. So let's all maintain a laughing attitude. It's easy to do, and it doesn't cost us a thing. Remember, next time life throws you a curve, just laugh, and hopefully the world will laugh with you rather than at you. Okay, so did you hear that conclusion? Summary statement. Now that we've seen how laughter can benefit us at work, at home, and even improve our health, you've restated the preview. What was your preview? How laughter can help us on the job. So you said with work, with our friends and family. You said at home. It restates it. With our health. Okay. We should all start to smile. So basically your summary statement restates the preview in different words. Then you've got link material again, more material about why this was important, what we should think about. Then you restate your thesis. What do you want the audience to take away from your speech? What's the takeaway? And here it is. So let's all maintain a laughing attitude. It's easy to do and it costs nothing. And your next line is not, that's it. Okay, no. Now your last line refers back to your attention getter. So here it is. Remember, next time life throws you a curve, just laugh, and hopefully the world will laugh with you rather than at you. Notice, how did you start it? Haven't you heard the saying, let a smile be an umbrella? How about laugh and the world will laugh with you? See how your ending line refers back? So that's how you do it. If you started with a question, maybe the last line of your speech answers that question, or you end with another question. If you started with a quote, maybe you end by referring back to that quote, or you end with a similar quote. If you started with the beginning of a little story, you end with that story or whatever happened to the person. You'll see later how that happens in other speeches. So this is the structure, and it's the bookend effect. It gives your speech nice unity. So And like I said, there's other examples in your book, so read that chapter. But now you're probably asking, this is all very nice, Ms. McNeil, but how the hell do we apply this to our assignment, the narrative speech? Well, I gave you an example. I gave you a sample. This speech is based on an actual speech I had from a student one year. Because again, class, the level of disclosure is sometimes pretty powerful on these. And it just depends. I've had some wonderful speeches. I've had some wonderfully funny ones also. Oh my Lord. But anyway, this was based on an actual speech. He chose memorable moment, and he chose the day his father had a heart attack. Now, this was many years ago, so we didn't have our phones yet where you can play sound effects and this and that. He actually had a little miniature tape recorder. Okay. Oh, because I would really like for you to have some sort of presentation aid that you incorporate into this speech, either a photo or a sound or whatever it is, a collage, a prop. That's always fun. And think about where you can introduce that prop or that photo so that it has the most power, okay, in the speech. Well, so anyway, here's what he did, and you have this speech. And of course, you would know this speech, so you would be talking to us. You can glance down every now and then, but you know your speech, so you should be talking to us. The first few lines of your speech should be straight out to the audience. You should not be looking down. That's your first contact with the audience. You want that attention getter, boom, right out to the audience. So here we go. So he came up to and like I said, I may have to look down. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so he comes up, he gets our attention, because we're actually in a live classroom, who knew? Gets our attention. He has the little tape recorder. Play. Bump, 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 bump. Stop. How many of you in here have really thought about the meaning of that sound? The sound of a human heartbeat? I mean, this sound is one that most of us take for granted, right? Because we can't hear our own heartbeat, only feel it. Well, I know that I really never thought about the meaning of that sound either, or what not being able to hear it might mean until one life-altering day. In the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you an event that made my own heart skip a beat. From the moment I heard my mom's voice on the phone to the drive to the hospital, I knew I was about to learn a deep lesson. So the day started off like any other. I woke up in the morning. I expected the day to go fine. Okay, so anyway, he goes into the story, right, of the day that his dad had a heart attack, how it started off. His mom got him out of school. They drove to the hospital. He talks about all the descriptions of what the hospital looked like and how it felt and all of that. He talked about many thoughts went through my mind as I waited during the surgery. And then I held my father's hand when he woke up. So his father did survive. What was his lesson? I learned that I needed to spend more time with my father. And I realized that I really didn't know him that well and took our relationship for granted. Okay, and of course, this is just the outline. He expanded that story and lesson in the actual speech. So then the conclusion. So after hearing the story about the day my father had a heart attack, perhaps you can now understand how this event changed my family. I mean, we actually sit down at the table now and eat dinner together. And when my father wants to know how my day went, I actually answer him instead of just saying, fine. I think more about death and life and also about heart disease and the genetic risk it might pose for me. And I hope that now you too will at least think about these issues and what having your family there for you really means. And I hope as well that you now know just how important this sound really is. Play. Bump, 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 bump. Stop. End of speech. It was very powerful. It's one of those speeches I still remember, which is sort of amazing because let me tell you, I've heard tons of speeches, but very powerful. He started, think of his attention getter. He started with the sound of the heartbeat and he ended with the sound of the heartbeat. And he asked us a question, right? How many of you have ever really thought about what this sound means? The sound of a human heartbeat. And what was interesting was by the end of his story, our perspective of that sound did change because of that story. So, and just to go through the parts, we're almost done. I know I'm talking a lot. I am a speech teacher. So what was the attention getter? The sound. And then how many of you ever really thought about what this sound means, the sound of a human heartbeat? Now all the link material. He's telling us what does his topic have to do with this attention getter. That we take this sound for granted. We can't hear our own heartbeat. We just feel it. I know I never thought about this either, okay, until this one life-altering day. What's the thesis? In the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you an event that made my own heart skip a beat. So there it is. We know we're going to hear probably the memorable moment story. So you need to say, in the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you the most embarrassing moment of my life, or a moment when I wished I could just disappear into the floor, or whatever it is. But you have to phrase it so that we know we're going to hear your memorable moment or your embarrassing moment. Then the preview. He gives us a little teaser. We know the preview. The preview should tell us in some form or fashion that we're going to hear his story and the lesson. So here it is. He gives us a couple teasers from the story. From the moment I heard my mom's voice on the phone to the drive to the hospital, I knew that I was about to learn a deep lesson. There it is. We know we're going to hear the story. We know we're going to hear the lesson. Now, warning, danger, people. Do not give away the climax of the story in the thesis and preview. Today I'm going to talk to you about how I scored the winning shot for our district basketball game. Really? No, we don't want, you just gave the whole thing away. Save that for the climax of the story. I'm going to tell you the story of the most exciting game of my life, basketball game of my life, where my nerves were really tested, or whatever it is. You see so you don't want to give away in this speech the climax. So then he went through the story and lesson. Let's come back to the conclusion. What is his summary statement? After hearing the story of the day my father had a heart attack, perhaps you can now understand why this event changed my family. Okay, you just heard the story and you heard the lesson, how it changed my family. And then we have the link material, right? And then what's the restatement of purpose or thesis? I hope that now you too will think about these issues and what having your family there for you really means. This is why I told you the story. This is why I gave the speech. Audience, this is what I want you to take away. And then the very last line is not, that's it. It's, and I hope as well that you now know just how important this sound really is. He's referred back to his attention getter. So see, that's how it's done. That's what you're going to do. And of course, I'm reading off the paper. He did not. He knew his story. He knew his introduction. He knew his conclusion. It was not memorized. It was learned. There's a difference. It doesn't have to be word for word in extemporaneous speaking. It just, you know the order of your story and you're still making the same points, but you're talking to us. Think about telling your friend the story, because what we're after, class, is conversational delivery. You're also going to learn later that being able to insert a narrative, a personal story, or a case study, this happened to someone else, in an informative speech or a persuasive speech later on, a smaller version of it can really pack a nice, it can get a nice whammy. It can give us, in a persuasive speech, it creates emotional appeal. And in an informative speech, it creates identification and empathy. And we realize, wow, this person didn't just get all this information out of a book or wherever off the internet. They actually lived it and went through it. Think about Amy Cuddy's speech. Almost everyone noted that she seemed nervous, that she didn't seem as polished of a speaker, even though, guess what, she teaches at Harvard Business School and went to Princeton. But in any case, she's nervous, etc. But her speech, and that Kelly McGonigal is technically the better speaker in terms of her delivery, but guess what? Amy Cuddy's speech has had far more views than McGonigal's has. One of the reasons, besides the subject matter, is she uses that personal narrative about getting that brain injury and having to overcome that in her own life. And a lot of times that's what grabs people, right, are the stories. So that's it. No, just kidding, class. So I look forward to hearing your stories. Pay attention to the structure. And I am going to send you a link for live conference hours tomorrow. So if you have any questions, because today, I guess in these I should tell you what day it is. I don't know. It's Thursday, November 5th. Remember, these are not due till Tuesday. And everyone take a deep breath. No matter what the outcome of this election is, we just have to stay patient. I think we have to stay curious. And I think we really need to think about our characters and our ethos and how we make our arguments, and realize that, we're the same people. We are supposed to be the United States of America. And so everything has gotten so ugly on Twitter and on Facebook and on wherever else. I think we really need to step back and think about civil discourse. And I'm going to talk more about this later, but I'm kind of coming full circle. So, and with our pandemic going on, social distance, wear a mask, do your best, take care of your mental health, go outside, feel the sunshine, look at the birds, look at a flower, look at the sky, feel the nice weather, play your favorite song, listen to your music, whatever you need to call a friend, whatever you need to do, class. But be gentle with each other. Be gentle with yourselves. Have fun doing the speech. I know that's easy for me to say, but this is one of my favorite assignments. I really enjoy hearing your stories. I really enjoy learning from them. I am going to end it there, even though I really want to talk to you about narrative identity theory, because that kind of ties in to another purpose of storytelling. But I will save that perhaps for ethos and for persuasion when we talk about framing. So, take care, class. I look forward to hearing your speeches. Email me with questions, or please come to the live meeting tomorrow. Take care.